The smoke of Satan.
Hello and welcome to the final episode of The Smoke of Satan. My name is Joseph Cillo Jr. I'm a writer of edgy Catholic fiction. I've written a thriller, When the Wood is Dry, an edgy Catholic thriller, my comic book and graphic novel, Blind Prophet, and my Christmas book, Merry Friggin' Christmas, an edgy Christmas comedy, which is a Christmas gift for atheists. So if you know an atheist, buy one for him for Christmas. Comes in a naughty edition and the standard edition. Standard edition has a clever way that I kind of obscure some of the more problematic language and make it a little bit more readable for people who may be offended by bad language. Okay, so we are on the final episode here. It's episode 15, which is Remedies. So St. Pius X has gone through in Pascendi Dominici Gregis, his Encyclical, all the characterizations of the modernists, all the method and the methods of the modernists, what they think, how they think. He's identified the problem completely. Then he's identified what he considers the causes of it, and he's identified how they propagate their beliefs, which he considers to be dangerous for the church. Now, we call this the smoke of Satan, which is based on something that Pope Paul VI said when he's in about 1971, after the Second Vatican Council, after the propagation of the new Mass. It's been out there brewing for a few years, and in 1971 he said, we would say that through some mysterious crack, no, it's not mysterious, through some crack, the smoke of Satan has entered the Church of God. There is doubt, uncertainty, problems, unrest, dissatisfaction, and confrontation. That's from St. Pope Paul VI, who pretty much presided over the Second Vatican Council and the propagation of the new Mass. Seems like he got some second thoughts after he did that, because I believe that the smoke of Satan was Vatican II and the new Mass. Okay, so we're going to be talking about what Pope Pius X, St. Pope Pius X, identifies as the remedies for this modernist heresy that he sees running through his church. And you're going to see he was doing something about it. He was trying really hard to suppress this thing. He was fighting. And nobody's fighting anymore. These are things that don't happen anymore. So what happened with all the steps he was taking to try to stop this kind of thinking in his church? Well, in Vatican II, some of the very people who have been sanctioned for these kind of things were invited in to write the documents. They ran the council. They took all the preliminary documents that were prepared by this Thomist, Octaviani, I think was his name. And they took them all and they threw them out. And they replaced them with modernist-derived documents written by people who Pius X would not have thought well of. This is the forgotten battle. This is what we surrendered to. And we didn't, we were the sheep. We didn't know. This is what our shepherds did. This is where the shepherds wandered off and left the flock and tried to say, come over here, flock. That's not a good place. So let's listen and see all the things that he said. But first, I want to remind you where these guys go wrong, right at the base and heart of the Catholic theology. They go wrong. They throw out the angelic doctor, St. Thomas, and his scholasticism. And this is where it comes from. So St. Thomas took what Aristotle had done in the ancient Greeks, well before Christianity, what they had done with philosophy. And they said that there are senses, we apply our reason to the senses, and this is the source of knowledge, and then we have a natural end when we die. St. Thomas said, well, that's a good start, but there's something you left out, and you need revelation directly from God to complete the picture. So there's revelation directly from God as another source of knowledge, and we have a supernatural end. And when you put this together, you cover everything, right? Everything falls together and makes sense. But some ambitious theologians, back in a couple hundred years ago, looked at this and said, well, we don't really need this external revelation from God. It runs into some trouble with our atheist, rationalist friends who don't like to believe in God. So why don't we just say that grace perfects nature and faith is the perfection of reason, and then, we don't need all this extra stuff that St. Thomas put in, and we can just rethink everything, and we'll call it resource mon. We'll resource the doctors of the church from before St. Thomas. We'll go back to the fathers of the church. We'll read everything again through this lens and see what we come up with. And so they did. And you come up with something different. And they called it the Nouvelle Theologie, which is the new theology. And it's not what we believed for the 1800, 1900 years before they started mucking around with it. And it's not the same faith. This got institutionalized at Vatican II. Most of our theologians now are falling into this camp, which Pius X was fighting against, and saying we have to do something to stop them. And now we are going to talk about all the things that he was trying to do to stop this, his remedies for the Modernist Heresy. Okay? So, what are his remedies? First, he goes back to his predecessor, Leo XIII. So, Leo XIII worked against the modernists, especially as regards the Bible. Okay? Modernists proceeded to twist the words of the pontiff to their own senses. So, his acts they described as directed against others, not against them. So they kind of misconstrued what Leo XIII was saying and saying, no, he's not talking about us. Okay? So we're going to go through this now. The study of scholastic philosophy. We will and ordain that scholastic philosophy be made the basis of the sacred sciences. If anything is met with among the scholastic doctors which may be regarded as an excess of subtlety, or which is altogether destitute of probability, we have no desire whatever to propose it for the imitation of present generations. That is from Leo XIII, talking against these modernist philosophers and theologians in the church, emphasizing the scholastic doctors as the basis. And as I've emphasized in every one of these episodes, I've gone back to the scholastic theology and I've shown you the basis of it and what they want to throw out. All right? So this is Leo XIII identifying it way even before Pius X. Okay? The scholastic philosophy we prescribe is that which the angelic doctor has bequeathed to us. St. Thomas Aquinas is the angelic doctor. What he has bequeathed to us is the formula that I've been showing in every single one of these episodes and saying this is what we're supposed to believe, and then showing you what the modernists believe, which is different. And you get different answers. And you've changed the faith. Okay? And the faith is something that shouldn't change. Right? Jesus gave us that faith, and we developed it for centuries, but for millennia, over 1 millennia, almost 2 millennia. And then these guys came along and they changed it. Okay? That's what the problem is. Okay. Further, let professors remember that they cannot set St. Thomas aside, especially in metaphysical questions, without grave detriment. For in the vast and varied abundance of studies opening before the mind desirous of truth, everybody knows how the old maxim describes theology as so far in front of all others that every science and art should serve it and be to it as handmaidens. So here he's emphasizing, this is again Leo the 13th saying, theology is primary. The sciences serve theology. They are her handmaidens. All right? We don't serve science. We don't subordinate faith to science. And in a number of these episodes we've seen how one of the goals of modernism is to subordinate faith to the sciences. Okay? He's saying, no, that's an error. Don't do it. Okay? Grave detriment he's warning of. Okay. Certainly more attention must be paid to positive theology than in the past, but this must be done without detriment to scholastic theology, and those are to be disapproved as of modernist tendencies who exalt positive theology in such a way as to seem to despise the scholastic. So he's saying you can do positive theology, which is referencing directly the Bible and other sources, and start that as your starting point rather than the philosophical starting point that St. Thomas is using. But you need to be careful. And if you do it in such a way as to despise the scholastic, that's trouble. You're in trouble. That's modern. That's a modernist tendency that he's warning against and saying, don't do that. This is Pope Leo the 13th. So, we've got a number of popes who are standing up and saying, we're fighting this battle. But once we got to John the 23rd, he said, oh, you guys, you got some interesting ideas. Come into my new council. And then Pope Paul VI just let them run the council. And he regretted it toward the end. He was like, these guys are out of control. Once the council was over, he was seeing what they were doing with it. And that's when he said the smoke of Satan has entered the Church of God. This is the history. This is what happened in that council. Okay? Now, we can go back and we can look at these documents and we can try to quibble with, is this one heretical or is that one heretical? But that's an exercise that really needn't be done. The people writing the documents meant them to be heretical. They meant them to be along the lines of this modernist thinking, which was condemned by previous popes. Okay? So, let's move on. He's going to get more into his remedies. So his first remedies have to do with you can't abandon scholastic theology, which is what I've been stressing in every one of these episodes. That's where they go wrong, right at the base. You go wrong there, and everything you think about the faith is wrong. You're going to come up with a different answer, and it's going to be it's not going to be as tight. It's not going to be, not going to make as much sense, right? And that's the problem. Okay. Practical application. All these prescriptions and those of our predecessors are to be borne in mind whenever there is question of choosing directors and professors for seminaries and Catholic universities. Anybody who in any way is found to be imbued with modernism is to be excluded without compunction from these offices, and those who already occupy them are to be withdrawn. Now, do you think that's happening now? What happened? They are all imbued with modernism in all of these universities, in all of these positions, in these seminaries. The seminaries were so corrupt. They were trying to, John Paul II was trying to clean them up. And then Benedict XVI was trying to clean them up. He closed a few of them down. You know, why? Because they had gotten way, way out, even too out of control for those two. And they even have modernist tendencies. John Paul II and Benedict XVI. They're big believers in Vatican II. So we have problems, you know. In Vatican II, we were not saying everything was bad about it, but we're saying there was a misguided intent, a modernist, heretical intent in those documents. And a lot of those people were well-meaning people, but you get wrapped up in your own pride and your own thinking, and you think I got the Holy Spirit now. Oh, this one's a great idea. And which spirit is it? Are you discerning that spirit properly? Is it going to lead to good places? Or is it going to lead to grave troubles? Which is what Leo XIII was warning about. He goes on. So here's a sanction. He's saying, don't let them in your universities. Don't let them run seminaries. What happened? They let them in the universities. They let them run the seminaries. We lost this battle. Okay? The same policy is to be adopted towards those who favor modernism, either by extolling the modernists or excusing their culpable conduct by criticizing scholasticism, the Holy Father, or by refusing obedience to ecclesiastical authority in any of its depositories, and towards those who show a love of novelty in history, archaeology, biblical exegesis, and finally towards those who neglect the sacred sciences or appear to prefer to them the profane. So he's warning even more about these the modernists who are criticizing scholasticism, and he's saying that the same policy should be adopted toward these people, which is, don't let them in any kind of positions where they can cause trouble. You know? Okay? So, let's move on. Far, far from the clergy be the love of novelty. God hates the proud and the obstinate. Now, I don't like talking bad about popes, right? But even Benedict XVI said something about novelty. He said, we wanted to do something that was interesting. They were bored with scholasticism. You know, here's the problem. I get it. When you're really a smart person and everything is figured out, you start trying to do something revolutionary. This happened in music, you know. It was after the giants of classical music, like Beethoven and you know, those Mozart and those guys. You know, they said that this whole system of 12-tone music and tonality has been used up. We can't be more brilliant than these guys. So then they started doing crazy stuff. And they did all this atonal experimental music and stuff that's kind of hard to listen to. It's not immediately easy on the ear. It's not like the harmony of nature that you naturally have affinity toward. You have to kind of learn how to listen to some of that. I mean, I know I studied music. But this is what happens with very smart people. When you've been outdone by the past and you think there's nowhere to go anymore, you start doing things that are a little revolutionary. This is what happens. I mean, I understand it, but it's not good. Because if the old answers were the right answers, you don't need to change the answers. Right? You need to love them. You need to love the past. You need to love where we are. You need to love how theology all came together. You need to see the beauty of the system that answers all the questions, and not say, geez, now I don't have anything left to figure out. I don't have any way to make a name for myself, so let me try to do something different now. No. This is pride. And this is what he's saying. It's pride, and it's obstinacy. Okay? All right. That's my editorializing on that from my perspective. Okay? For the future, the doctorate of theology and canon law must never be conferred on anyone who has not made the regular course of scholastic philosophy. If conferred, it shall be held as null and void. See, so maybe some of you were saying, what's this guy, Joseph Cillo, what's he doing with this scholastic philosophy, scholastic theology? Every one, he has to go over the same thing over and over and over again, because I don't want you to miss it. This is what Pope Pius X is saying. They abandoned the truth. They abandoned the scholastic philosophy, which was true. And they tried something because, well, they were bored with it. That was what Benedict the 16th said. Pope Benedict said. Right? Or is it 14th? I can't remember what his number is. Pope Benedict, Ratzinger. He was Ratzinger when he was at the council saying he wanted to do something new. Okay? This whole spirit of novelty was running through this council. It was a council of novelty. Right? And then they came out and said, well, we didn't really address anything dogmatically. Well, what is the purpose of it? Okay. Let's move on. Clerics and priests inscribed in a Catholic institution or university must not in the future follow in civil universities those courses for which there are chairs in the Catholic institutes to which they belong. If this has been permitted anywhere in the past, we ordain that it be not allowed in the future. So he's saying that, if you got a chair in a Catholic institute, you shouldn't be going out into a secular one, right? We got to be a little bit careful about wandering out there among the atheists and communists that are running the secular universities. All right? Now, Episcopal vigilance over publication. And you're going to hear something here that I don't think you're expecting to hear. Okay? How far they were going to try to clamp down on publications of things that were against the faith, which is this modernism, which was kind of in vogue, right? All right. Episcopal vigilance over publications. Prevent writings infected with modernism or favorable to it from being read when they have been published, and to hinder their publication when they have not. Okay? Books are to be declared off the list of reading. And they haven't been published yet, you're not allowed to publish it. Now, this is you don't have control of the entire press, but you have control of the Catholic press. So you catch Catholics publishing stuff that's heretical, and you say you can't do that anymore. Right? So, no book or paper or periodical of this kind must ever be permitted to seminarists or university students. Catholic universities, man, we have a lot of them. What he's saying is none of this should be in our Catholic universities more broadly, and certainly not in our seminaries. Our Catholic universities and seminaries are full of it. They're full of all of this modernist stuff. It's like the rule now. We've gone so far the other way. It's like you're ridiculed and chastised and isolated if you believe the traditional theology. You're mocked. This is a problem. See, we've gone totally off from where we should be. The injury to them would be equal to that caused by immoral reading. Nay, it would be greater, for such writings poison Christian life at its very font. What he's saying, the writings are poisoning Christian life. So we need to stop them. It's like immoral reading. Well, what does he mean by immoral reading? Well, there's a lot of stuff that's immoral reading. And that's probably all in these seminaries too. All right. The same decision is to be taken concerning the writings of some Catholics who, though not badly disposed themselves, but ill-instructed in theological studies and imbued with modern philosophy, strive to make this harmonize with the faith. And as they say, to turn it to the account of the faith. So he's saying there's a lot of well-meaning people who aren't really instructed very well in theology, which might include me. But I'm going the other way. I'm saying we should do what he's saying, right? If the church wants to sanction me for speaking out about this, they're free to, all right? I think we need to get back to what Pius X is saying here. And what he's saying is that some well-meaning people, in my own thinking, in my own pride, in my own sense of the Spirit, I might think that something is true, but I might be deceived, right? So I might be ill-instructed, and I'm trying to harmonize things to make them make sense, and I'm not doing a good job of it, okay? But I should be corrected if I'm doing that. Okay. He continues. Do everything in your power to drive out of your diocese, even by solemn interdict, any pernicious books that may be in circulation there. When was the last time you heard your bishops issue an interdict about a book and say, I want it out of my diocese? Don't read it. When? I mean, I remember back, we used to have a joke almost back in the 70s about banned in Boston. It was like a sure way to make sure your movie was a popular hit back in those days. You get it banned in Boston, and then everybody wants to go and see it and see why it was banned. It kind of backfires. But we don't have anybody saying you can't read this book or that book. Right? Who's doing that? All right. The Holy See neglects no means to put down writings of this kind, but the number of them has now grown to such an extent that it is impossible to censure them all. See? He's like he's almost running up the white flag right here. We can't censure them all. This is so pervasive and so out there. We're trying to reel it back. We're trying to fight it. But we're late to the game. They've already seized a lot of ground. Injunctions of Leo XIII in the Apostolic Constitution Officiorum let the ordinaries, acting in this also as delegates of the Apostolic See, exert themselves to prescribe and put out of reach of the faithful injurious books or other writings printed or circulated in their diocese. Is your bishop doing that? Ask your bishop. When was the last time he banned a book? Put it out of the reach of the faithful. When did he do something like that? When did he ever advise anybody? When was the last time your bishop issued a statement saying, this book should not be read in our diocese. It's not good for Catholics. I don't remember my bishop ever doing that. All right, let's see. Let no bishop think that he fulfills this duty by denouncing to us one or two books, while a great many others of the same kind are being published and circulated. All right. So, maybe there was some bishops who were trying to slip one by of saying, okay, we'll ban this one and that one, but we'll let these go. He's saying, no, don't try to deceive us. Ban them all. Okay. I'm not a big fan of censorship, right? But when it comes to religious things, we need to take a stand. If people are outside the church and are reading things that are garbage and trash and wrong, you can't stop them. And it's freedom of the press. It's freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want. But guiding your flock to the right pasture, you have to tell them you can't go there. I mean, I had this happen to me. I was at this Catholic thing. What was it called? Oh man, I don't remember what the name of it was. Christ Life. That's what it was. Christ Life. We invite a lot of people in. You talk about religion. You watch some videos, and then you eat some food, and you kind of have a conversation. I was there, right? And I'm at this table. I'm thinking I'm in a safe Catholic environment. And this woman at my table starts spouting off about how excited she is to be going to a seance. Okay? Going to a seance. And I'm like, don't do it, man. That's bad. If you do, you got to go to confession. You don't want to be going to a seance. So, I mean, but you can't stop that. That person probably wasn't really Catholic. I didn't realize that, at this thing, you had people who weren't Catholic trying to introduce them to the Catholic faith. Maybe I was a little harsh about it because I was freaked out that somebody would be going to a seance, trying to talk to the dead. This is a grave sin, right? Can't be doing that. You're opening yourself up to the real mess when you do that. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in, that we can't control people like that. People are going to be having seances and stuff, but we can tell Catholics not to go to a seance. You know what happened to me for that? I got chastised for that. I got moved to a different table. and you know what happened? My pastor the next week in the bulletin had a statement about seances and telling people they can't go to seances. So he did address it. At least my pastor did. He said, no, they're having some public seance somewhere, and he said, you can't be doing that. I was on the right side, but I got kind of chastised by it, for being wrong about it. But at least in that case, the priest was with me. Oh my God. Okay. So, but it is not enough to hinder the reading and the sale of bad books. It is also necessary to prevent them from being printed. Okay? Here he's talking about stopping things from being printed. Well, you don't, like I'm saying, you don't have a lot of control about the free press, right? But you have Catholic press, and you have Catholics working in publishing companies, and if they own a publishing company, you can say, look, you can't be printing this stuff. In all Episcopal curias, therefore, let censors be appointed for the revision of works intended for publication, and let the censors be chosen from both ranks of the clergy, secular and regular, men of age, knowledge, and prudence, who will know how to follow the golden mean in their judgments. Okay, so he's saying, this is kind of a judgment call. We need to have prudent men reviewing what's going to be printed and what's not going to be printed, what's going to be allowed to be printed. Now, this is from Catholic press, which I guess we have less of now, but there's still Catholic press. If you want to put Catholic on a book, you're supposed to have, an approval from the church. We admonish religious superiors of their solemn duty never to allow anything to be published by any of their subjects without permission from themselves and from the ordinary. Well, if you're in, how many of them are having this James Martin guy? Is he getting approval for everything he's writing? Or All these guys are out writing whatever they want. Nowadays, it's even worse because you got like Twitter, they're tweeting, they're writing stuff on Facebook, they're blogging, they're writing all kinds of stuff everywhere. It's not like in the old days when you had to be published in a magazine or something, or a pamphlet, something that was more controllable. Now it's just you type it into a computer and whoop, it's out there, right? But they're not being censored. And the religious superiors are not coming down on these guys when they print stuff that's heretical. They just aren't. And a lot of times the bishop himself is heretical. So who's going to come down on him? Okay. It is forbidden to secular priests, without the previous consent of the ordinary, to undertake the direction of papers or periodicals. This permission shall be withdrawn from any priest who makes a wrong use of it after having been admonished. So, there it is. Secular priests, no, you're not allowed to just go and print whatever you want. Now, if Pius X were still Pope, he wouldn't let you go out tweeting whatever you wanted, and if you were admonished, you wouldn't be able to tweet anymore, right? That's the thing. There's nobody doing this anymore. We don't have that kind of control over anything anymore. All right. With regard to priests who are correspondents or collaborators of periodicals, as it happens not unfrequently, that they write matter infected with modernism for their papers or periodicals, let the bishops see to it that this is not permitted to happen, and should they fail in this duty, let the bishops make due provision with authority delegated by the Supreme Pontiff. Let there be, as far as possible, a special censor for newspapers and periodicals written by Catholics. It shall be his office to read in due time each number after it has been published, and if he find anything dangerous in it, let him order that it be corrected. Now that's not happening. When is that happening? When has a Catholic censor read something from one of these guys and said, hey, you got to fix that, that's heretical? The problem is we have this going all the way up. The bishops are all infested with this now. We're behind the 8 ball. It's like it goes all the way up to the Pope, you know. So we're in trouble. We got to try to reverse this. We, the laity, have to rise up and do something about this, and say we have to do something. Okay. Congresses. We've already mentioned congresses and public gatherings as among the means used by modernists to propagate and defend their opinions. In the future, bishops shall not permit congresses of priests except on very rare occasions. Solemn recommendation of Leo XIII. Let priests hold as sacred the authority of their pastors. Let them take it for certain that the sacerdotal ministry, if not exercised under the guidance of the bishops, can never be either holy or very fruitful or respectable. So, yeah, he's saying, well, you can't have these congresses of priests. Well, what do we have now? We have a pope who's espousing all these synods where they all get together and they all conspire to do heretical things. Okay? So this is a problem. And we've forgotten it. Diocesan watch committees, bishops of Umbria, in order, they say, to extirpate the errors already propagated and to prevent their further diffusion, and to remove those teachers of impiety through whom the pernicious effects of such diffusion are being perpetuated. This sacred assembly, following the example of St. Charles Borromeo, has decided to establish in each of the dioceses a council consisting of approved members of both branches of the clergy, which shall be charged the task of noting the existence of errors and devices by which new ones are introduced and propagated, and to inform the bishop of the whole, so that he may take counsel with them as to the best means of nipping the evil in the bud and preventing it spreading for the ruin of souls, or worse still, gaining strength and growth. So this is the acts of the Congress of the Bishops of Umbria. So he's endorsing this diocesan watch committee idea. Okay? We don't have that going on. Where's your watch committee in your diocese? Okay? We decree, therefore, that in every diocese a council of this kind, which we are pleased to name the Council of Vigilance, be instituted without delay. Go ask your bishop, where's his Council of Vigilance? Okay? They shall watch most carefully over for every trace and sign of modernism, both in publications and in teaching, and to preserve from it the clergy and the young. They shall take all prudent, prompt, and efficacious measures. Are they? All right. Leo XIII. It is impossible to approve in Catholic publications of a style inspired by unsound novelty, which seems to deride the piety of the faithful and dwells on the introduction of a new order of Christian life and on new directions of the Church, on new aspirations of the modern soul, on a new vocation of the clergy, on a new Christian civilization. Well, are they talking about all this new stuff? And do you know any bishops and priests talking about all this new stuff and cardinals? Well, Leo XIII is saying don't do it, right? So, here we go. Finally, we entrust to the councils of vigilance the duty of overlooking assiduously and diligently social institutions as well as writings on social questions, so that they may harbor no trace of modernism, but obey the prescriptions of the Roman pontiffs. Really? Okay? Is anybody overlooking the social anything here, the social institutions? All right. We move on now to his idea of triennial reviews. Okay? He wanted to get reporting on this to him, right? We will and ordain that bishops of all dioceses, a year after the publication of these letters, and every 3 years thenceforth, furnish the Holy See with a diligent and sworn report on all the prescriptions contained in them, and on the doctrines that find currency among the clergy, and especially in the seminaries and other Catholic institutions. And we impose the like obligation on the generals of religious orders, with regard to those under them. All right. Ask your bishop, where is the triennial return? Okay. The adversaries of the church will doubtless abuse what we have said to refurbish the old calumny by which we are traduced as the enemy of science and of the progress of humanity. Meanwhile, venerable brethren, fully confident in your zeal and work, we beseech for you with our whole heart and soul the abundance of heavenly light, so that in the midst of this great perturbation of men's minds from the insidious invasions of error from every side, you may see clearly what you ought to do, and may perform the task with all your strength and courage. Are they? Is anybody pursuing this task with all their strength and courage now? Where are the bishops standing up against this thing? We gave up. We gave up. And when did we give up? We waved the white flag at Vatican II. We let these guys run that council, and now they run around saying, like as if the church began with Vatican II. They don't ever want to go back before Vatican II. Right? This is a problem. And it's something that we need to insist on. We need to insist that our priests and bishops and cardinals and pope have faith. The true faith. and they stop this innovation, this side, this tangent that we went on in Vatican II, and we get back to the real thing. Okay? My name is Joseph Cillo Jr. I know I've been kind of passionate about this, but this is the last one. So we're going to be saying goodbye from the Smoke of Satan. Again, Joseph Cillo Jr. I've written books, When the Wood is Dry, an Edgy Catholic Thriller, Blind Prophet, comic book and graphic novel, and Merry Freaking Christmas, an edgy Christmas comic. You know what? I would be happy if Pope Pius X came, read one of my books, and said, hey, that goes too far. You can't do it. You have to change it. I would change it. Right? I think I need to go out here to catch these people who are out close to the edge and bring them back with an edgy story that actually is drawing them toward the faith, because they're so far now. If I just talk in straight terms about the faith, it's really hard to reach them. Okay? That's my thinking there. All right? God bless you. And we're signing off for the Smoke of Satan, and we'll see you at another program some other time. Thank you very much.